Shalom and a very good morning to you. Thank you very much, Shari, for the introduction. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. Nothing like a group of protesters gets you worked up in the morning and ready to go. And that's great. Listen, it's a hard act to follow, to speak after the pastor. But I'm not on that same ticket, so to say. What I'm here to talk about is the very bare reality that we face in Israel. And I'll speak about the threats that we face. I will speak about our enemies. I will speak about the sacrifices that have been done so far, sadly. And I will also speak about Israeli actions. What has been done so far, what may be happening right now as we are here in Washington, D.C. And I will speak about what I think is needed for the future in order for there to be stability, peace, prosperity, and good news coming out of Zion. I'd like to start with thanking Pastor Hagee and Diana for having me, and of course to Shari for organizing and all the team at CUFI. I'd like to start with thanking you, all of you who are here. As an Israeli, it warms my heart. It warms my heart to see so many people from all over America take your time, energy, your resources and efforts and make it all the way here in order to show support for Israel, and I thank you for it. Thank you. And if there ever was a time to support Israel, and if there ever was a time that Israel needed that support, that time is now. This is the third time that I'm happy and honored to be present at a CUFI conference. The previous times, last year and the year before that, I spoke about the very things that we are seeing now that have unfolded since October 7. I spoke about how Iran is building a network, a ring of fire around Israel, arming terrorist organizations to their teeth with the best equipment that the Iranian military can produce, or that they can buy from China and Russia. I spoke about how Israel faces real and imminent threats from all of its borders, but most significantly from Lebanon and from Gaza. And I spoke about the threat from within, and I spoke about Iran, both in terms of their nuclear aspirations to be a nuclear military power and to wield an umbrella, a nuclear umbrella, above Israel and to deter it from defending itself. And I spoke about the challenges that we face inside Israeli society and with regards to Palestinians and Arabs. Before October 7, I was speaking of things that had not yet happened and were not yet as tangible. And sadly today, after October the 7th, they are very, very real in Israel. As I was waiting to go on, I constantly checked my phone to get updates from Israel, whether or not Israel has finally struck back against Hezbollah for the brutal murder of 12 civilians on the Golan Heights and for 10 months of attacking Israel from Lebanon. As of a few minutes ago, that has not yet happened, but as the pastor said, we may be at the cusp of very dramatic events in Israel and in the entire Middle East. And I hope that we will have the fortitude, the wisdom, the precision, and the strength to defeat our enemies and to deter them from attacking us ever again. Friends of Israel, I'd like to spend a short moment of silence, where I will be silent, in order to honor the terrible loss of human life and potential. I want us all to think about the young children, the women, the men, the elderly, the civilians and the soldiers who were killed by Hamas on October the 7th, and of the soldiers that have been killed since, and of our 115 hostages that are still in Hamas captivity. And I want us all to focus our best thoughts and prayers for comfort for the families, and of course for the swift and unconditional return of the hostages, those that are already sadly dead and their bodies are being held brutally without any mercy by Hamas, and those that are still alive and need to be brought back home. And I would want us to just pay a moment of silence to them and hope that their sacrifice won't be in vain. In terms of statistics, Israel has been fighting on 7 fronts for 297 days. The human toll is staggering. Not only what the pastor said about the initial attack against Israel, but so far, more than 1,200 Israelis were killed on October the 7th, most of them civilians that were massacred in cold blood in some of the most gruesome ways never seen before, not in Israel. And you have to remember Nazis and ISIS and Daesh and some of the worst perpetrators of crimes against humanity in order to compare what Hamas did to Israeli civilians. Since then, sadly, we have had a total number of 689 Israeli soldiers killed in combat, defending Israel and fighting on all borders, Gaza, Judea and Samaria, and Lebanon. We have more than 4,400 wounded, many of them severely wounded. You know, there's a positive, there's a silver lining here, because Israeli medical services on the battlefield have taken the art of bringing severely wounded soldiers from the battlefield to hospitals, intensive care units in hospitals, level 3 hospitals within 1 hour, which is amazing and really world level. And what that means is that many who in past wars would have died of their wounds in the battlefield now are brought to Israel and their lives are saved. And that's a blessing. However, what that means is that we have an abnormal amount of veterans that are handicapped and severely wounded and will suffer from their wounds for their entire lives, sadly. Since October 7, more than 14,200 rockets have been fired at Israel from Gaza, aimed at our civilians, aimed at our cities, aimed at our military, aimed at every Israeli in Israel, regardless of their color or faith or their political leanings. More than 6,400 rockets have been fired from Lebanon at Israel by Hezbollah, by Palestinian organizations, and by additional Iranian proxies. Countless drones, UAVs, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and weapons of all kinds have been fired at Israel for more than 10 months. And up in the north alone, northern Israel, 24 civilians and 22 soldiers have been killed. So you see, even the ratio, more civilians have been killed by Hezbollah than military, which is a very clear testament to who they are and what they're really doing. They are not the defenders of Lebanon. They are the oppressors of Lebanon, and they are a threat to the region and a threat to Israel. Now, Israel is fighting on 7 fronts simultaneously. And I've looked through history books and tried to find a precedent or something similar to that, that a country so small, surrounded by so many enemies, is asked to defend itself on 7 fronts simultaneously. We're fighting in Gaza, which is still the main theater of operations. We're fighting along the Lebanese border, defending and containing the situation, not yet taking the initiative and not yet striking Hezbollah in the depth of Lebanon or in their headquarters in Beirut. We're fighting Iranian proxies in Syria. We're fighting Iranian proxies and Palestinian terror organizations in Judea and Samaria, an area that for some reason people around the world like to call the West Bank. It was Judea and Samaria long, long before anybody thought of the West Bank. We are defending attacks from Iranian proxies in Iraq, sending long-range drones, so far unsuccessfully, towards Israel. And we are thwarting off attacks from 1,300 miles away from Yemen by another Iranian proxy, sadly, one that led to one Israeli civilian being killed just a week and a half ago. And we are fighting the head of the octopus, the empire of evil itself, Iran. We have done it only once, after the attack in March, when Iran attacked Israel with more than 300 missiles, drones, and rockets. We retaliated at a very, very small percent of our capacity, even promille of a percent of our capacity. And we struck deep inside Iran, probably in a trade-off, because we wanted to first get business done in Gaza, in Rafah, and that's why it was decided to do a very small and moderate strike in Iran. But the capacity is there. Now, let's say a few words about peace in the Middle East. I share that yearning. I hope for my children, my 4 amazing children and all other children in Israel, to be able to live and grow up in a peaceful environment where there's no fear of incoming rockets, where they don't know what suicide bombers are, where they don't know what the drive-by bombing is, or hordes of terrorists coming across the border to their homes and butchering their families. I fear that until Israel defines a strategy, a comprehensive strategy against Iran that does diplomatic, political, economical, and what hasn't been done so far, military action against Iran, we will continue to face this level of terror, instability, and violence because nobody is forcing Iran to change their strategy. And let me be clear, it hurts me to say, but the Iranian strategy against Israel is bearing fruit, and it is working for the Iranians. It is not working for us. The strategy that we have held to of containing the situation, of dealing non-kinetic blows to the Iranians, has allowed Iran to be less than 2 weeks away from having enough fissile material for a nuclear bomb, as per Secretary Blinken, and it has allowed them to build a ring of fire around Israel that ensures that we will be fighting for our survival for the generations to come. Now, I have respect for all of my enemies. I never look down on my enemies, and I look at them in fear or respect for their actions. So I am not belittling them. But I think that we are overestimating the capabilities of Iran. We are overestimating their real stamina and mettle to fight. And I think that the time has come for Israel to put a price tag for the evil leaders of Iran to continue to murder Israelis. Because as long as there isn't a price tag for the blood of Israelis, then the Iranians have absolutely no incentive to change their strategy. And for those around the world, and I believe that you find people in this room are people who want peace, prosperity, law and order, security, and success. For the people around the world who want that for the Middle East, that cannot happen with an unhinged and unlimited Iran that is free to sow havoc and instability and violence in the Middle East. It is bad for Israel, it is bad for the people of the regions, and it is also bad for America. Now, I'm still relatively young. I have no political background and no political understanding, but I am not naive. And I do not think that anybody will do our dirty work for us. And I don't ask that anybody do the hard lifting for Israel. I think that Israel has the most amazing, capable, brave, and talented military that can do the job. And the only thing that I, as an Israeli patriot, ask, and I echo the words of the pastor, is that the true friends of Israel will show their friendship and support in our time of need and allow us to pursue our safety, our security, our right to live safely in our ancestral homeland. And what's keeping us from doing that is an Israeli decision that has not yet been made, but what could and will be very helpful is for Israelis to know that America has Israel's back and that we will have the support that we need. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I have a folder on my computer. It's full of interviews of quite arrogant people who, after the atrocities of October the 7th, you know, they're military experts, defense analysts, security correspondents, academics, who, after October the 7th, as Israel was reeling from the most severe and humiliating blow that we have ever been dealt, as we were just coming to terms with understanding how many of our civilians had been murdered, how many had been taken hostage, as we were beginning to learn the cruelty, the systemic, gleeful cruelty of Hamas, and how happy they were at what they had been able to accomplish. And we saw that through the videos that they broadcasted live for everybody to see, gloating, calling back home on cellular phones that belonged to their victims in Israel. They were calling home to their parents saying, "Look, mother, be proud of your son because today I have killed 10 Jews with my bare hands." As Israel was reeling from that, we were planning our military response against Hamas. It was clear to everybody that we had to go in Gaza and to make sure that Hamas and no other entity will ever have the ability to do what they did on October the 7th. We were planning to do it, and many people were advising us not to. They were saying, "No, Israel, you cannot. You won't be able to. Hamas is too strong. It's too heavily fortified. There are too many civilians there. It's against international law. You mustn't, you shouldn't, and it's not in your interest." And I have a folder of these people, especially those who said that Israel wouldn't be able to defeat Hamas. That is exactly what Israel is doing. We are now We are now in the slow, deliberate, careful out of a respect for the sanctity of human life. That's the only careful we are. But we are now slowly but surely dismantling Hamas's network of tunnels. We are taking away their rocket capabilities. Most of it is already a thing of the past. We have killed more than 65, almost 70% of their combatants. We have taken out many of their brigadiers and their high command and their battalion commanders and company commanders. We are dismantling their terror network. We have significantly degraded, almost totally, their ability to produce weapons. And as we speak, Israeli soldiers are busy dismantling the tunnels under Rafah, which have been the lifeline of weapons from Iran through Egypt into Gaza that has facilitated these attacks against Israel. All of that is happening now, and I want to be unequivocally clear. I believe that Israel can and will defeat Hamas. So to close, we always have to think where we want to be. Just like in prayers, we don't think of what we don't want, but we think of where we want to be. So I would like all of us here to channel our vision, our prayers. Think about victory. Let's focus on victory. And what does victory mean? I'll share my perspective, what real victory is. It's not the amount of dead Hamas terrorists that are now in rubble in Gaza. That isn't victory. It's not even a dead Hamas commander, Yahya Sinwar or Mohammed Deif, even though that is definitely a good and blessed thing. It is not destroyed infrastructure. That isn't victory. Victory will be when you, good people, can come to Israel, to the kibbutzim that were destroyed on the 7th of October, and you will come to communities that are thriving, full of children, and you will hear the beautiful sound of the laughter, the careless laughter of Jewish children playing in their backyards. That will be victory. Thank you. And victory will be when the kindergartens of the northern Israeli town of Metula, just close to the border with Lebanon, hundreds of yards from Hezbollah infrastructure, when the kindergartens there will be full again, and when there will be a waiting list for kids to be in the kindergarten, that will be victory. When foreign and hostile leaders, like the leader of Iran, or just yesterday, the leader of a NATO country, the president of Turkey, Erdogan, when they won't have the audacity to threaten Israel, one with destruction and the second with invasion. Think of that. The leader of a NATO-aligned country is threatening to invade Israel. He did that yesterday on Turkish television. When none of them feel confident enough to threaten Israel, and that will take time, then we know that we will have obtained victory against our enemies and deterrence by the power of victory. When the hostages are returned to their families, those alive and those dead, then, and only when that happens, then will we have achieved victory against the vile monsters of Islamist terrorism. And then there will be time for positive things, for the expansion of the Abraham Accords, for bridges of peace to be built in the Middle East, for prosperity, for beautiful things to grow, and for Israelis, for Jews, for Muslims, for Christians, for Bedouins and Druze and Circassians and all of the other minorities that we have in Israel and around the Middle East. Then there will be a time for them to live side by side, respectfully, in a sovereign and safe Israel. The Jewish prayer, and with this I will finish, the Jewish prayer says that God will grant his people strength, and then he will grant them peace. It's in that order. First comes strength, and in my words, victory, and then peace will come. Thank you. Thank you very much.